Hi, this is video number 12. I received a private message on Facebook a couple days ago from a young lady, and it has to do with generally with relationships and withdrawal, and also in a broad way, caregiver burnout. People who take care of us, people in our lives who look after us and have to listen to us every day for hours, complain about our symptoms, their burnout, and that does happen. And I think, well, first I'll read what she wrote, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, she writes, "The problem I'm having is this: I can't seem to switch off from withdrawal mode. My husband is drained. I try to focus on their life and living, meaning her family. She has a couple boys, I think. But ultimately, things turn to withdrawal. He is sick of living and breathing withdrawal and symptoms. Do I never discuss how I'm feeling, fears, and so forth?" And that's what she wrote. And the short answer to that is yes, you never discuss it. But that's I mean that sounds kind of cruel, I know. But minimizing discussing your symptoms and so forth is probably the best thing to do. However, I think you have to look at it from two perspectives. I mean, there's your own perspective, how you feel, and you're going through withdrawal, and it stinks, it feels bad. But you also have to look at it from the perspective of the people who have to listen to us, and it's not easy. I've talked to lots of them. I was one once. It's not easy for them. But first, we'll talk about the first part here. I can't seem to switch off from withdrawal mode. Um, I try to focus on other things, but it always returns to withdrawal. And all I could speak about when I was in withdrawal, when I was in tolerance withdrawal, and when my actual withdrawal started, once I was off Klonopin, was my symptoms, my misery. There was no other world to me. I mean, that was my total world, misery. It was I couldn't think outside of that. I mean, I knew there were other things going on, but I couldn't relate to them. In my first few months of withdrawal, like intolerance, and all the way up to about, it was almost a year. It was about a month after I was off the Klonopin. My wife would make those suggestions. Well, get outside and walk. Go have dinner with someone. Call your friends. Do this, do that, exercise. And she did that for quite some time. And she kept at it. And I tried to do things. I honestly did, just like we all do, at least at the beginning. But there was one particular Saturday morning up in our living room, and I had been off Klonopin for about a month. I had worked all the way through, like my tapering and everything, till I was off Klonopin for a month, and then the bottom fell out, and that was the end of my working days. I just got terrorized. I just was filled with fear, and I came home, and I stayed home ever since. Anyway, that one particularly Saturday morning, I was a month off, and I was bothering her. I was whining and complaining and pacing. And she says, "Well, why don't you call Harold?" Harold he was my best friend, and I had talked to him a couple times when I was in tolerance, and it was very, very difficult. He would talk about his family and his work and different things he was doing, and I could hear his words, but all I could talk about and think about was my own misery. And I know he got bummed after a while talking to me because I talked about pain and suffering. So anyway, she kept at me this Saturday morning. I call Harold, and I could tell she was getting tired of it. And I stood in the living room and I just started sobbing and said, I can't do it. I can't call Harold. I can't. And she saw me there crying, and that day she knew Don is really messed up. He's sick. This is bad. This isn't going to work anymore. Me trying to get him to do things, tell him to do things. So after that, we sort of had this unspoken agreement that when we were together, and we would often sit like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon together and talk and so forth. But in withdrawal, I just talked about misery, and I would complain about my symptoms and so forth. We kind of had this agreement that we would sit there, but we wouldn't talk. We would just She would do what she does. I would do what I do. Maybe have a little light music on. And so that's what we did. At other times during the day, I would typically be upstairs at the computer doing, I'd be pacing, I'd be doing anything I could do to pass time, and she would be downstairs doing things. And so that she didn't have to listen to me. And I've always been one to like kind of suffer quietly, but if somebody's going to start asking me questions and wants to talk to me, I'm going to talk about how I feel. That's just how I am. So anyway, there were a lot of times where we would go out together, and I wouldn't talk, and I wouldn't whine. I like follow her around like a little dog. I couldn't do anything. I had that derealization, weird, floaty feeling. We would go to fabric stores and stuff, and I would just wander around the store because I hardly even knew where I was. So anyway, we basically did not communicate after that first month off of Klonopin because I was a downer. I would just bring her down whenever I would talk. And I got all of my hope basically in those days from success stories and positive posts on forums. And I have a friend, Jason, I would see him once a week, and he had gone through withdrawal from booze and street drugs years ago. And he would always tell me, "Yes, you're going to get through it." And he had kind of a edge to him, and he wasn't the most touchy-feely kind of person, but he always gave me hope. He would just kind of laugh, "Yeah, you're going to get through it. It's going to be okay." So from our perspective, we're sick. All we know is suffering, and I understand that, okay, because I went through it. But there's also the perspective of the other side, the people who have to listen to us, spouses, friends, other relatives, anyone who's looking after us and has to listen to us. And I was on that side a number of years ago, and I had written about this in my book, that after our son was born in 1985, my wife went into this. It wasn't postpartum depression. It was well, we didn't know what it was. She was like paranoid. She was anxious. She was restless. She would constantly dwell on things that had happened in the recent past and in the far past, where people were thinking these things about her, and that everybody's thoughts and feelings were toward her, and that nobody liked her. And I would come home from working for hours and hours. I would sit and tell her, "Nobody's thinking anything bad about you. They don't waste their time thinking bad thoughts about other people. You're not, you're okay. You're fine. And she's a very nice person, very affable, congenial, but she just had these thoughts and feelings. Anyway, for me, there was a frustration. Okay, I'm sitting there. This is my wife. I'm a guy, and guys try to fix things. I'm gonna fix my wife. I'm gonna use logic and reason. We're gonna be okay. Well, that didn't work. And I tried many, many, many nights. This went on for months. Finally, well, I was frustrated. Okay, but then there was fear too, because she was just getting worse and worse. I was confused. I had no clue what was going on. I had never seen anybody get like this. And then there was that helplessness feeling. After a number of months, one weekend, she went off the deep end. She just kind of lost it. She went to the psych hospital for a week. And during that week, I had no idea what was going on. I had an infant and a toddler to take care of, but I had a job too. I thought, what am I going to do? So there was this fear. I had this fear of like, is my wife ever coming home? Is she going to be a mother? Is she going to be a wife? Is she always going to be in a facility somewhere? So there was this helplessness, like, what am I going to do? Because my wife was in another world. So I think like our significant others, our spouses and so forth, when we're going through this, they want to help us, but they don't know how. And it's scary because, if we have children, who's going to raise the children? Who's going to, if we have jobs, like, well, there goes an income. How are we going to make ends meet and so forth? So, and it's a very real fear that they have too. So I understand both sides. And my wife did eventually get well, and our relationship was restored and so forth. But when we whine and so forth constantly, it's hard on the other person. It really is. And my suggestions for people who are the caregivers for us, I think if you can get free time, you need as much free time as possible just to get away. I've seen a lot of well, the people who mostly go through this that I've noticed are women. Okay, and men they're not as good as women at taking care of the other one. I see men like kind of get upset, frustrated, and burn out a lot faster than I see women. I don't see a lot of like married women, wives, with husbands who are going through it. But of the ones I do, they're a whole lot better with patience and taking care of the one who is in withdrawal than the other way around. Men really, I know some really good men too who have hung right in there and they're really good at it. So I can't. It's not a rule, but generally it seems to be that way. Let's see. Okay. One of the things when we're going through withdrawal, probably the hardest thing for a caregiver for the spouse is when there was what we call benzo rage. And not everyone gets that and directs it towards someone else. I had lots of rage, but mine was more like a symptom of depression. Like I would direct it inside toward myself. I did not, or if I would rage, it would not be outwardly. It would be more inward, more like if I'm alone, I could rage and jump around and get crazy, but I didn't typically direct it at someone else. And that's normal, but that's hard. That's hard on a caregiver. That's hard on your spouse, your friend, your parents, whoever's taking care of you. So that makes it extra difficult. And I can feel for people who have to put up with the rage because it can be really bad. I've seen it. So let me see what else I'm going to talk about here. I do know one of the women that I know who's going through withdrawal. She's about 2.5 years maybe. I had an opportunity to meet her and her husband a while back in October, and her husband is really, really patient and good with her. But I didn't know until this last time I visited them that he, months earlier, had gone through. He had been taking Ativan or something for something work related, some stress or something, and then he came off of it, and he started getting anxiety and all kinds of weird, nasty thoughts, and he thought he was just like having some kind of a break, a mental break or something. In reality, when he came off the Ativan, he was going into withdrawal. He was in withdrawal for a number of months, I guess, and he didn't really know it, but somehow he made it through that. And then, like, not long after that, his wife came off of some benzo, and she started going through withdrawal, and they recognized that's what it was. He had gone through it too, so he's an exception. Like, he had been through it, so that kind of adds to the thought that you really have to go through this to understand that he does. He's very, very good at it, being with her and taking care of her and understanding. So I mean, my hat's off to him for sure, but he went through it too, so that gave him a little extra. He had an advantage over most people. He actually did go through it. So as far as caregivers, I would like at some point to have a section on the website for caregivers, because I think that would be very good. I've heard from some who are really struggling and it's difficult for them. And ideally, I would like to have a caregiver of someone who has gotten through to maybe do videos or write for the website. That would be really, really good. But we'll see. That's something for the future. So the short answer to the question is, because she's asking, do I never discuss how I'm feeling, my fears and so forth? And my answer would be, like, in our house, after I had gotten on my wife's nerves long enough. I could see like I need just to be quiet. And I know we're all different. That's just my personality. I have a quiet personality. But if we can minimize as much as possible, the complaining and that, and the rage is really hard. And I know this isn't. I mean, we're all different. I mean, we have to preface everything we say, everything I say, with that we are all different. We have different kinds of personalities, different life situations, different living environments, different spouses, different friends, and so forth. So there's a lot of things that are different, and we all go through it differently. But I guess the point I would make is that the caregivers, I mean, they're going through this too, and I know it's hard on us the ones who are in withdrawal, but also for the caregivers, it's hard. It's frustrating because usually there's someone who loves us and wants to help us, and they can't. There's nothing you can do except say, I understand I understand that you're going through something. I don't understand what you're going through, but I understand that you're going through something. So I know this probably isn't particularly helpful, except to the extent that like this is pretty common. Withdrawal does a number on relationships. I stayed married, and our relationship it's different. It is different now. Now that I have healed, I'm a different kind of person, and I think about that a good bit. That I'm a much better man than I was, but I'm also it's just different. Our relationship is different somehow. I don't know if it had to do with she saw me as weak as a baby. I mean, I was just not just her, but lots of people did, and that. Well, I mean, they all see me very, very strong now, stronger than I've ever been. But there's just something. Maybe it's just the male ego. I don't know. So anyway, that's my take on this. That's probably more information than you want or need, but that's what it is. So I'll sign off for now. We're 17 minutes. Hang in there. It'll get better. And I hope your relationships. I mean, if you struggle and have difficulty with them, I hope they get restored. And there's every reason to believe that they will be restored. Mine, every relationship I ever had before withdrawal has been restored, and I've made many more. I've made lots more friends, probably because I've been through this. So that's something I know you can look forward to it, but you don't feel like you can right now, and I understand that. So hang in there. It's going to end. You're going to be well, and life will be good on this side. It is good on this side, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here. So till next time, see you later. Bye-bye.